We don't go for naturism here, my friend.
Sure we do. But you know we go for being live. Because we are live. This is Reason Speak. My name is Sidney Winston. I am also known as Ask an Atheist, because I got the answers. Today is July the 16th, 2015. And we have our guest from across the world, Nathaniel. And as you can see, Nathaniel's busy concentrating on the show by playing Minecraft.
I am indeed, my friend.
Yes, you might want to say hello to the world while.
Hello, world.
There you go. Hello, everybody. We also have Damien. He's that ghost-like figure that you see in the picture right now. He'll be back in a minute. A couple of things we want to discuss today before we get into the big topic of the one-state solution. I'm confused, I'm angry, but mainly I think I'm angry because what's happening in Greece, with Greece and the rest of Europe and Germany, what's happening in the United Nations or with the deal between Iran and the US, these things are bothering me. They're not being handled correctly. Nathaniel, you're in Europe. You're closer to the action.
In Israel, not Europe.
Oh, so sorry. You're in Israel. Oh, jeez. I said Europe. Sorry, yeah, Europe. Yeah. Forgive me for saying that Israel is part of you. What's going on in Greece? With Greece, firstly, don't you think that the deals that they've made up to now are just kind of Band-Aid, you know, speckle?
It's not just me who thinks so. The German finance minister just a couple of hours for the second time again said that Greece probably would be better off leaving the EU.
Wouldn't Greece be better off being just forgiven the debts and sort of being start again and helped out maybe, because leaving the EU and then fuck off Greece, you're on your own? I think it's inhumane to the Greek people.
No, it's not. It's not inhumane. It actually would be better for them. I think.
Yeah, but don't you think that their debt should be forgiven?
I think it probably should be, but that's not really the point. The point is whether or not their debt can be forgiven is one thing. It's what does Greece do about it? Do about their situation? Even if you erase their debt, their economy is in complete shambles.
Yes, but you can at least start off again. You can start building it up again.
Right, but remember, also, it's not just rich Germany who paid Greece all this money. It's a lot of poorer countries. Countries like Latvia who don't have...
I'm not saying that Latvia shouldn't get paid. I think Germany should say, I forgive you.
No, well, Latvia owns I think Latvia and a couple of other poorer countries in Greece own part of the Greece's debt. They don't have the money to just forgive Greece's debt. Germany can. France can. But there are other countries that can't. They're in worse situation economically than Greece, and yet they're sitting there footing the bill. I'm not. It's not that I don't have some sympathy for some Greek people who are now in dire straits, but this is kind of their own making. And there are other countries out there that are worse off than Greece overall, and they're trying to do better than Greece is trying. So why should they have to pay for Greece? How that's fair?
Well, it's all very well to say, why should this and why should they that and this, that, and the other, but the idea is to move forward and fix the problem and and be nice, respect people's individual rights, and strike some kind of a balance in moving forward amicably. I don't see anybody wanting to be amicable about anything.
We are talking about the Germans.
I know we're talking about the Germans. That's kind of one of my sort of points.
No, but honestly, they are not in the wrong this time. They are absolutely correct. As much as it pains me to say that about Germany and just in general, they are actually really correct. Merkel is correct. They should not have included Greece in the Eurozone. Greece lied to get into the Eurozone, so why should they stay? Plus, if you are worried about the Greeks, why should they stay? Again, they can't right now fix their system. Their whole economy is screwed up beyond repair at this point. They would have to completely change their way of life. It's not just sell off a few companies that the government owns, like the water company and the electric company. They would have to change their entire way of life to really fix their economy, and they don't seem to be willing to do that. Which is fine. It's up to they can choose how they want to live. But if they want to be part of a certain club, they have to follow the club rules, and the club says you have to have a certain solvency, which they don't have, regardless of whether you forgive them their debts. They just don't have that solvency.
Well, that's kind of sucky.
Yeah. But again, this is not the rest of the EU that made them live this lifestyle. They facilitated this lifestyle. I'm not saying the EU isn't partly to blame for basically giving them all this money, for 15 years without worrying the world. But essentially, the Greeks chose to squander that. The EU. The thing is that really the EU knew they were lying all along, so they can't really go out and say, well, we didn't know that they were not going to be a solvent nation. They knew full well. I think that they had. This is actually ties into the whole Iranian thing. There is this. There seems to be this penchant that, especially in the European point of view, that essentially if you keep talking, things will get better eventually, and people will change their lifestyles and ways and beliefs over time if you give them the chance. And the problem is that doesn't really seem to hold true. I mean, and just from experience, every single time that they seem to, throw caution to the wind and say, well, we'll give them a chance. They don't seem to be ready to change yet, but maybe by including them in the club, they'll change their ways. Well, that doesn't seem to work very well, frankly. And this I think has a lot to do with the Iranian negotiations as well, which we aren't going to get into right now. But I think essentially that people are saying, well, we're going to give Iran a chance and include them in the member of nations, and then they'll change their ways. But again, we tried that with the Palestinians. That was a bloody disaster. We tried it actually with in Srebrenica. We tried it with the Serbians. That was a bloody disaster. So it's not just Arab Muslims. It's not just dark people of Mediterranean descent. It's pretty much anybody who doesn't want to change essentially their lifestyle. And basically including them in the member of nations with the hope that it's going to change, that it's going to make them want to change their lifestyle, I think is really kind of idiotic at this point. Because we have a whole lot of evidence that doesn't work.
Did when West Germany and East Germany reunified, wasn't there a big huge debt forgiveness somewhere along the line during that?
Yeah, but there were caveats to German reunification. East Germany basically had to adopt certain things about West German economy, and it took 20 years for them to do it, but they did it successfully because essentially they had no other choice.
Right.
But we're talking, they were fairly similar in terms of culture. It hadn't been that long. With the Greeks, we're talking about a completely different culture than Germany, and they don't. I don't think the Greeks should become Germans. I mean, they can be more like the Spanish, who also had a debt problem, but they actually turned that around. This coming year, the Spaniards are actually going to be growing 3%. They turned their whole economic mess around. They also had austerity. They also had debt. And they were willing to bite the bullet and get their economy fixed up. It's not perfect, but again, this year they're going to be growing 3%, which is essentially is you're out of a recession. It means you're actually making a profit. So the Spaniards did it, and they have an exceedingly lackadaisical Mediterranean lifestyle, for everything I know about the Spanish. But they managed to do it.
Now, what was the secret then that the Greeks aren't figuring out?
There's no secret. They were willing to do it. The Greeks aren't.
So, okay, then what's going on? What's the future then for Greece, for Europe, for Israel? What's the region going to look like at the end of this week? Because I don't even know when they.
Well, I don't think. I honestly don't.
I
don't think that the Greeks. They're going to affect the world economy a little bit, but it's not overall that much.
Yeah, but the Greeks, I mean, this whole thing's going on. A deadline passes, and then another deadline passes, and then a threat, and a deadline, and a.
Well, there's a rather there's a rather good theory, or I should say hypothesis, going around that. Cyprus or whatever his name, I can't remember right now because I'm
Cyprus or something.
Yeah, Cyprus. He actually didn't want his referendum to win. It seems as if he really was looking for them for a way out to basically get out of the Eurozone, but not it be their fault necessarily. And that the point that he won, I don't think he really knew what the fuck he was supposed to do at that point. It's kind of like the movie Candidate,
when he said that when he urged everybody in his parliament to vote for the package, he even said, "I don't like the package, I don't support it." Yeah. But it's better than I don't want to be the one to sort of have Greece go bankrupt. That is like,
right.
That's kind of the dumbest thing.
No,
why
it's
did
not.
Why did you fight for it?
I think he doesn't know what to do next. I think he really intended to lose at some point and have Greece exit without it being his fault. But he found himself in a position of winning, and like I said, like in the movie The Candidate, when at the very end Robert De Niro wins and looks at his advisor and says, "Well, what next?" Essentially. So I think essentially, not Robert De Niro, Robert Redford, sorry. So essentially, I don't think he had a plan. I think he really didn't have a plan. I'm not saying that I completely blame him, because I don't think anybody had a plan, but he was supposed to have one, really ideally. I mean, he's the leader. He's the guy in charge. He's the one that everyone was looking to fix this situation, and essentially he just made it worse. He made it worse in a really bad game of chicken, is what it amounts to. Yeah. And now the Greeks are stuck because he figured on something happening that didn't happen, and they're paying the price for it now. My guess is honestly history will look very unfavorably on him, because he was just ended up being a very bad leader.
What do you think of Greek economics now?
There is no economy in Greece.
Well, I'm looking at a graphic right now which explains the Greek economy quite well, actually, with even
Right, I'm
no
looking at it. Yeah,
numbers, not even any
yeah,
numbers. Now understand the Greek economy.
yeah.
Now, there's still a strand of hope, as you can see. He's still able to
Well,
chip away. It hasn't
here,
quite
here,
collapsed.
but here's the thing: when people talk about forgiveness of debt, that's okay, fine. But do you know how much Greece owes? If this bailout actually goes through, do you know how much they owe?
Yes.
This is not like a
They owe
trifling
200% of
50.
GDP, something they can never pay. That's what I'm
No, but I'm
saying.
talking in monetary terms. They owe like something on the order of $500 billion.
Half a trillion dollars, exactly. Now they
Right.
can never pay that back, right?
Right,
So
but
it has to be
who
forgiven.
can? Who can? I mean, it's not like the rest of Europe is swimming in it right now. I mean, it's like the Germans themselves. They're doing very well overall, but it's not like it's doing very well in a really bad situation.
Hmm.
They don't have that kind of money to just throw away and say, "Oh yeah, well, we're going to just write this off." They don't
Right.
have. I mean, they have pensioners to think about. They have public projects and poor people to think about too. It's not. It's not like we're forgiving some little African nation who owes $50 million or something,
Right.
or $100 million. We're talking about $500 billion.
Okay,
Okay,
now you say Spain. I got an old graphic here, and you say Spain has pulled themselves out of the bottom.
recession. Yeah.
Right. Um, how much did they owe?
I don't know, but it was considerable. There were fears that that Spain would leave the EU as well,
Because
the
people were
eurozone.
leaving Spain, and they couldn't find work. The young people were leaving, and now Greece is doing the same thing. They're saying to their young people, "Don't leave, don't leave," even though like 50%
Yeah.
of them aren't working. Look at this one. This is what the EU thinks as they've
Yeah.
gotten from the deal, and that's kind of what
Well,
you were saying, right?
they have Greece again. Greece lied to get into the EU, and then they lied during their quarterly reports as to their solvency. I mean, it was just what they did would throw them out of any sensible, you know, circumstance. But the problem is
Right.
that the fear of there's two fears: that Greece leaving the EU, or well, the eurozone, will essentially crash the economy of Europe. All right,
What do
there's
you think
that
of
one
this
fear.
analogy?
However, there's another fear, and that's a very real fear,
What's
is
that?
that Greece is basically playing, rubbing elbows with Vladimir Putin. And Europe is not enthralled about Vladimir Putin getting a foothold in Europe on Greek soil, which is very possible because, first of all, Tsipras
Very possible.
is Tsipras is he was a former communist, and his party is far left,
Yeah.
and he has had overtures from Putin, and he has responded to them very favorably in public. So it is not a piffle of a concern. It's an actual real concern,
Mm-hmm.
and the United States and Europe do not want to have Putin with a foothold in Europe. I mean, that makes sense.
Well, how are they going to stop him? He's got a foothold in the Ukraine already. They're not going to stop him. If he wants it, he's going to get it.
Well, yes, he might. But the
Mm-hmm.
point is, if Greece doesn't leave the EU, then essentially we're talking about them not, making a contract negotiation with Putin, and Putin won't get, a foothold in the rest of Europe. So that's one of the reasons why Obama actually pushed for Greece not to be kicked out of the EU.
Mm. Obama pushed for Greece not to be kicked out of the. Ugh, what's
Yeah.
that? Well, so did everybody else. I mean, so did Greece. I mean, so did everybody.
No. From everything we know, look, they didn't make their negotiations public per se, but we know from the comments of the German finance minister today and in various times before, and we know from the head of the ECB, etc., and we know from the IMF that essentially there was a hell of a lot of arm twisting by other nations to get Germany and a couple of other nations to agree to do a deal with Greece. And so essentially it looks like Germany was leading the charge for them to get kicked out, and they basically got their arm was twisted in some political way for that not to happen. So they're essentially, I think what they did is essentially they offered them a really bad deal, so that if it doesn't get rejected by Greece, it might get rejected by it has to go through 8 other parliaments. Remember, the EU is just the worst bureaucratic nightmare in the world, and I think that they're hoping that this gives enough time for either one of the parliaments to reject it, or for basically Greece to just throw up its hands and say, okay, we agreed to it, but we're actually just going to back out right now. I think that essentially that's what most people in the financial world outside of Greece are hoping for. They're trying not to say it. They're trying to be politically correct.
I know, but at the end of the day, a decision has to be made. It is at the end of the day, they're either Greece is either going to go down the toilet, or it's going to survive and probably hopefully flourish. That's kind of what you want, right?
Right, but again, I think they would be better discovering that on their own, and I think that their chances actually of look, if I really am concerned about the Greek people overall, because I don't want to see any nation suffer like this. But I think if you are concerned about Greece, you really would want them to leave the EU, because there's no way in hell they could ever repay this.
I understand that, but hold on.
They frankly could do better with their own currency.
I know, but the Prime Minister himself said he does not want to leave the EU. Or he can't, or it's going to
I think his arm's being twisted as well. He also has political considerations, and which I understand, but he's just really not in a position to sort of make that kind of statement anymore. I think it's just Greek inclusion in the EU is a disaster. Everybody recognizes it. So why don't they just bite the bullet and just say, you know what, we're going our own way. We don't want to have any more debt than we can handle. We already can't handle this debt. We have other things that we need to concentrate on, and we're just going to go our way.
So you're saying Grexit, yes?
Yes, absolutely. Not only for Europe, but for the Greeks themselves. They have some really hard choices to make about the way they do business. And they're not going to get those decisions done by trying to appease the Europeans all the time and essentially feeling it as if it's forced from the outside. They have to make these decisions on their own. And I fully support their independence to do so. I think it's the only way that we're going to get a good situation out of this in the long run. So again, and you know what? The people who have been pushing for Grexit have not said that that Greece would be out forever. They said a temporary out. So essentially, Greece would be left on its own to sort out its mess, and then could finally, once they're solvent, once they've fixed their economy, once they've fixed their way of life, they could, essentially reapply for membership and be accepted. So this is not a permanent thing. Like, nobody's saying they should never be allowed in the EU again. This is saying, look, just fix yourself and then you can come back. Is that such a bad thing to say?
Don't know, Damien, what do you think? Do you care about Greece?
I actually don't really know enough about what's going on there. Like last week I was trying to look into it a bit and get my head around it, but economics is really somewhere where I won't say it's my strong point. I probably fail at it. So I don't. I get it.
What do you think about I'm not economically strong either,
Savvy.
but savvy, yeah. But Nathaniel mentioned something very interesting and I think very serious, in that the Greeks lied to the European Union or whatever about their
Solvency.
financials, essentially.
Hmm.
Is that not somehow a punishable offence in some way or another?
By who though? The only
Well,
way
by
the only way a country can get punished in a sense is
being
either
fined, and they don't have enough money to pay the fine.
Yeah.
yeah, but who's gonna find them? What international law did they actually break? And then,
Well,
the only other thing that
they're
could
a member of
possibly
a
happen
club,
is
right?
Right. They
yeah,
lied to
but
get into the club, or they lied to stay in the club, or they lied
well, yeah,
against the club's constitution, say.
but does the EU have? Obviously, I'm assuming they have rules, but do they have consequences?
Well,
Probably not.
I
it
actually don't know.
seems no. It seems like they're willing to bend those consequences to try to avoid disaster in their view.
Yeah.
Some of them are
Yeah,
willing to.
that's fine. But my main point though was who could actually punish them for. That's one of the actually first things that I read up was that they smudged their books and
Yeah.
continued to do so. Um, who's in a position to actually punish them for it? Forget
I
about
don't
whether
think
they
that.
could pay any fines or anything, but who's in that position to do it?
Well, how would you punish them? You basically just kick them out.
Yeah. Well,
I
the
mean,
only other thing
it's
you
not
could
like
do is
you're. I mean, what kind of punishment are we talking about? There's, realistically speaking.
well, the
It's
only
not
way
like
you could probably
they're gonna put the Greek prime minister over their knee and spank him or something in public as a punishment. Anyway, it was to be fair, it wasn't his party that lied. It was the former party. They got kicked
yeah.
out for what they did.
Yeah, he's only just recently been elected, hasn't
Yeah, they kicked out Papandreou. So
he?
it's not the guys who actually did this are out of power and have been for since January or whatever it was
Yeah.
since Syriza got in. So it's
The
not
only
like
other
these guys were taken care of.
no, the only other thing that they could possibly do to Greece is implement sanctions against them, but that would guarantee their demise, and then nobody will get anything.
Right, and I
Actually,
don't
that
think
would
anybody
cost them
really
more
wants to.
because then you're going to create things like a refugee crisis and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, I don't think it's sanctionable. The only time the Europeans ever sanction people are essentially when crimes against humanity are committed. This
yeah,
is not the case with Greece, so it's not like I mean they did something bad, and a lot of people are suffering the consequences, but it's not the same category really.
no, I know, I'm aware of that. I only said it as just to highlight
Yeah,
that that would be the only other way to punish a country is through sanctions.
yeah, yeah, right, yeah, I agree.
Talking about sanctions, I
Yeah,
understand that Iran's sanctions are about to be lifted.
yeah,
What do
that's a
you know about that?
mistake.
What do you know about that? Tell me.
Well, I'm actually of two minds again with the sanctions in Iran. I I don't you know I don't blame most of the people in Iran, and I really have a bad sense about punishing them for the crimes of their leaders, which frankly are just despots anyway. So I do feel slightly guilty. I just don't know what else the world can do. But as in terms of lifting them, I think frankly it's a mistake. It's clearly, I think it's a big mistake, and I'm not the only one who thinks so, obviously. So they are
When
not
I read
exactly
that
trustworthy. Yeah.
when I read that decision, actually the first thought that popped into my head was I can now possibly see a Israeli airstrike in the not too distant future.
Yeah, actually, that's been discussed already. They've been discussing the legality, basically, when would be the last legal moment they could do it before the stuff takes effect, before the negotiated settlement takes effect. So they have been discussing a strike. The problem is I'm again of two minds on the strike. I don't know if there is any other way, but I really don't absolutely support a strike right now. I just think that it's going to create a regional war, and I'm not sure that I want to be here for that.
So, in other words, as soon as you leave the region, go ahead, have a strike.
No, because my brother lives here, and like I said, he's in missile range, just like I am, and we're in literally a targeted area, which they have said is targeted and is ground zero for Hezbollah missiles. So I'm not exactly enthused.
What I can say though is, if Israel was to do it, I couldn't blame them. I totally understand where they're coming from. Not that's not saying.
I'm not
that
sure
I
there is any other way.
What effect would it have? What would they target?
Their power plant, their nuclear power plant.
Yeah, I know, but they won't bring down the Iranian regime, and that's the only thing that's going to solve the problem. Probably, if the Israelis struck at the same time that the Iranian population, the secular Iranian population, were rising up against the regime, who knows?
But
Here's
they
the
can
thing,
do
though.
To Iraq. They bombed Iraq.
Yeah, but they knew where to drop the bomb. There was one thing to bomb, This thing is complicated.
And then Iraq wasn't in the position to rebuild. And that would probably be the hope with Iran, not so much to change the regime, but just hoping they're not in a position to start again.
Well, okay, the reason I don't want it to happen is because I see it leading to a regional war. The problem, however, and that's the reason why most people don't support it. The problem, however, is that I don't see any other way out of this situation, meaning I think certain wars are just inevitable, no matter what you want in life.
No matter what you want,
it's not like the people of Europe. It's not like the people of England wanted to fight Hitler. It just was an inevitable conclusion. And people say, "Oh, you're comparing them to Hitler." Yeah, because it's a fucking good analogy, and Godwin's law isn't a fucking law. It's a stupid fucking meme, people. Get over this. It's not a fucking law. Okay, I've said my rant about
what law was that?
Goodwin's law.
There's a rant about Godwin's law. Now, when England, went to war with Germany, people in England didn't want to go to war. They thought it was a really shitty outcome. People in France didn't want to go to war. I don't want to go to war. There are some wars that are inevitable, and I think in the West we have grown into a sort of thinking that wars are actually never inevitable, that you manufactured and that people always lie to make them happen. This is utter bullshit. Okay, this has never been how the world has always worked, etc. This is complete utter nonsense. There are wars which are actually inevitable. And if we're just talking about survival or just having day-to-day business as you want it to be. And I don't think that this war is necessarily avoidable. I really think that it might actually be inevitable. I'm not happy about this. I really don't want it to happen. But I still have yet to hear an answer out of this that doesn't include a regional war. Because we're not just talking about the Israelis. People keep going on about the Israelis. This is the fucking Saudis. This is the Qataris. This is the Omanis. This is the situation in Yemen. This is I mean, there are so many regional powers at play right now that it has almost nothing to do with Israel and everything to do with everyone else around Iran at this point. Israel's just the most vocal because the other ones are just either too timid or they're just relying on Israel to do it for them, as they've always relied either on Israel or the United States. But you know what? People should start talking about the other regional powers. And I'm not a fan of the Saudis. I fucking hate them. Let's be honest. If the Saudi, if somebody actually told me, you know what, I'll hire you to go and kill the king, I'd be like, where the fuck do I sign up? Where do I get rid of this fucking Nazi family?
You'll be the first
I
Jewish suicide bomber to go into the Muslim heartland.
I would fucking pay.
I would say, yeah, way to go. You're a martyr. Nathaniel, I'm going to drink to your health on Saturday night. But you're dead, so I drink it.
Well, I would still do it. There are better ways. There are less better ways.
You're an extremist. You're an extremist atheist. I've never ever heard anything like that.
I hate the Saudi royal family. They are a fucking plague on the world. They're worse than the Nazis. Literally worse than the Nazis in terms of their beliefs. So yeah, I'm not a fan of the Saudis. But the problem is, if they go to war with Iran, which they might do, or if they go after a nuclear bomb, which they said they will probably do, that would be an even worse consequence. You're talking about a nuclear war rather than just a regional war. Now I put you, which is better? Okay, a regional war, tons of people die, and it lasts years and years and years. Another quote-unquote world war, or an all-out nuclear war between the different powers in the region. To me, the answer is clear. Both are shitty solutions. I don't want either of them, but if I have to choose, if it's Sophie's choice, I'll choose the regional world war.
A regional world war. What the hell does that mean?
It means World War II wasn't World War I. Didn't involve the entire world. They were fairly regional, but we still called them world wars because they were so big. They involved a lot of powers and different geographical places.
Oh yeah,
I agree, and I think you're right.
What do you think of the
war would be more regional, but most players in the world would be involved.
Yeah.
I'm ranting like crazy tonight. I apologize to the viewers.
That's why they're watching.
And maybe they are. Maybe they think I'm an
Thursday
asshole.
Night Rants. Thursday Night Rants by Nathaniel.
Bring it on. Bring it on, I say.
Bring it on. So what do you think of this cartoon?
I have to look at it. Yeah. Yeah, I supported Obama the second time around, and I am so angry. I am so let down by this guy.
Would you call that the two Ayatollahs?
No, because look, I don't hate Obama. I don't think he's a nefarious guy like a lot of
he knows
Republicans.
Shit about foreign affairs is all I can say.
Yeah, but he has a very, very point of view about foreign affairs, which I think is utterly ridiculous, but that's how he sees the world. He's wrong, but it doesn't mean he's doing it deliberately to hurt the Jewish people or hurt America, etc. He's just wrong. You can just be wrong.
He doesn't think about stuff and consequences himself.
He does, but it doesn't mean lots of people do, but they come to the wrong conclusions. I mean, I hate Noam Chomsky. I think he's an idiot.
Hold on, stick with Obama for a minute. Stick with Ayatollah Obama for a minute. I only ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
When Ayatollah Obama wanted President Assad from Syria to step down, he was quite adamant. You step down now, and all that. Well, he was wrong, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Well, actually, no. At the time, he wasn't. Now he would be. Yes.
But Assad didn't step down because Obama, the big shot president of the United States, told
Yeah,
him
but
to.
that's a more complicated situation. Look, it had Assad stepped down at that time, when there was
Yes.
a window of opportunity with moderates, which there no longer has been for years and years now, but at that time there was where the moderates actually held more power than the
Yes, I remember
extremists.
in the beginning
Okay,
of, sort of,
right.
as soon as they started the FSA, they were pretty
Right. Essentially, at the very beginning, Assad stepping down could have worked. So I'm not going to say that at that time telling Assad to step down was a mistake, because at that time I thought that Assad should step down.
Right.
However, today, since the last few years, no way. I keep Assad in power. You've missed your opportunity. You fucked it up. Leave him in there until he kills, all the fundamentalists, and then just try to get rid of him. But essentially, now is not the time.
Now is not the time, you think, eh? Well, talking about Iran, I have where the hell is it here? Something. There we go. I'm going to share this with you. I hope your French, Nathaniel, is as good as mine.
My French is flawless. I speak
All right,
fluently.
good, excellent. Now that is the French mandate.
Yeah.
Of Syria at the. Now you notice, I don't know if you can see my pointer here, but you'll notice that there's the state of Aleppo.
Yeah.
There's the Sandak of Alexandret. There's the territory of the Alawite territory.
Yeah.
That's where the present government comes from. There's Grand Liban, which became Lebanon.
Yeah.
The state of Damas. And the state of the Druzes.
Yeah.
Right. Now that is the demographic makeup of this area. All of this whole thing became
one state.
One state.
Well, apart from Lebanon, but that's the satellite state. So yes.
And it all exactly, except for Lebanon, that also became another state. But that's all happened at the same time as what was going on down below was happening as well.
Yeah.
How come it's so sort of harmonious up to now in Syria? Like how?
It's not harmonious. It wasn't
ever. Now it isn't, but it's.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't even when Assad's father was in power.
I know, but
Assad, slaughtered people of
why don't the Druze have a state?
They should, and I said it last week. They should have a state.
Why don't the Alawites have a state, and why don't the Aleppans have their state? Well,
I think after what the Alawites have done anyway to basically make this situation what it is, I don't think they deserve a state anymore. But what can I say?
No, okay. Let's talk about 1947. When or 1945 when this was all sort of. Well, when the British left Palestine. Do you have a history of how this Syrian mandate unfolded and timeline of that? Because I don't really. All I know is that in 1922 they were given this area here.
Yeah.
That was the mandate.
Yeah, I know what the mandate looks like.
And somehow they carved out Syria and Lebanon out of it. Without having revolutions, without giving the Druze their state, without.
Well, they suppressed everything. They suppressed people.
There's also an easy.
But who did the French suppress them first? How did it all start?
Well, the Alawites took power and suppressed everyone.
But back then, I mean, this is a bit of an oversimplification, but the easiest way to say what happened back then was they were all Muslim. They weren't joining with other religions in the same territory.
Lebanon was Christian. Sorry, Lebanon is Christian. The Druze are not Muslims.
They're not.
Alawites are Shia.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Carry on.
Hang on. Majority though were just different sects of the same religion, so it was easier. But then once they got in, that's when all your regional, tribal stuff kicks in. After they've all sort of settled in, and it's all been accepted. If there was a big mixture of Muslims, Christians, other religions, they probably would have had similar troubles to what happened
Muslims,
down
Christians, Jews. Oh my! Sorry.
south. Then the picture would have been completely different. Now, I did first say it's an oversimplification, but it's a very easy, for me anyway, a very easy, simple way of saying how it transpired. Mainly because it was predominantly the one religion, different sects of the one religion, but one religion.
Well, they didn't see it that way. They didn't see it that way. Let's be honest. The conflicts now, the internecine conflicts have always been there, and they've had tremendous amounts of wars in the past to prove their point that they are the right people, etc. This is not a new phenomenon. So I don't think that really applies to reality, frankly. I think essentially it's always been there, and we keep flogging ourselves, flagellating ourselves, saying mea culpa. It's the Iraq invasion. It's our supporting dictators. This is
It has nothing
to do with creating this circumstance. I'm sorry. People who keep going on about it, really, they've chosen their side and it's the wrong one. I'll say it's on the other side, or they just have this thing about just wanting to keep kicking the same dog, the military-industrial complex, blah blah blah, what have you. It's an excuse. It's a fucking excuse.
Some people just want to blame the West for everything that goes wrong.
Yeah, I know. And look, the West has done plenty wrong, but it doesn't mean that the rest of the world doesn't have agency. Nobody made the reaction to the invasion of Iraq. If that was actually creating, first of all, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, and then creating ISIS in Iraq, okay, why does that actually have to be the natural reaction? Why does that have to be acceptable as a reaction? Okay, if the Soviet Union in the 1980s would have invaded America, do you think Americans would have created an ISIS out of a reaction to that invasion? Would that have been an acceptable reaction? Would people in America say, you know what, I really understand why they cut people's heads off who aren't even, Russian. It's just, it's because the Russians invaded. You don't think they would blame those terrorist groups themselves? You don't think that would be first and foremost and say, you know what, whatever excuse you have, it doesn't matter, because what you're doing is completely unacceptable. There is no excuse that justifies it. None. There is no but in the following sentence that, this is wrong. Period. End of sentence. There's no this is wrong, but it's justifiable, or I understand. No, that's wrong. There is no but. And if there is one, you really have to re-examine your priorities, your morals, your ethics.
Exactly, I agree.
Damn, this is
but
good whiskey.
They don't think like that. All they think is, who can I blame? They probably don't even realise that by saying what they're saying, they're justifying all these atrocious bullshit that goes on from the other side. Some of them don't even realise that that's what they're doing. They're just too concentrated on blaming someone. Yeah,
I agree.
And it's a lot. I'm not sure if you've heard the term. It's a common term here in Australia. It's called the tall poppy syndrome, and that's when if someone really does really well, especially if they become celebrity type status, they just wait for them to fuck up, do something wrong, so they can tear them back down again. Yeah. We call that the tall poppy syndrome here. It's kind of the same thing. As Western industrialized countries have gotten up to that sort of level status, and then these people within our own countries just itching for an excuse to tear us back down again. Instead
I
of
agree.
instead of doing what is a more logical, rational thing to do, is elevate everybody else back up.
Mhm.
It's a common tactic and mistake.
Yeah, I agree. They like to tear down, people who are high up.
Yeah.
I agree, but I think it's really worse than that. I think that essentially it has a lot to do with the new way of thinking about, how we gained our power, etc., which obviously was not great, but you know, in some ways it was far better than what others have done in the world, and they seem to completely ignore that because their guilt over, white race or brown race or what they see as a racial issue or something where it really shouldn't be.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. I just think that essentially these people are unhinged, and again, like I said, they've chosen their side, and it's clear what they want to happen. They want to take down the entire system. Well, fine, that's your point of view, but in you're lucky you're living today is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
What do you think of this topographical map?
I will look at it in a
And
second.
I need you to know, let's say
Yeah.
you've got the border on the one end. You got the sea on the left hand side, and you got the river and the
Mhm.
two little lakes on the right hand side. How do you defend that whole? How do you defend that whole strip?
You don't.
Well, if you could, how would you?
You take the strip.
Thank you. Now, is that not the only solution to defending that?
Yeah, look, if you ask
Strip?
any Western military strategist and general, etc., who has been to Israel and has actually toured the place, they will all tell you that there is no strategic way of keeping a peace with an enemy who holds those two pieces of land. In
But
fact,
still
if
there
you look
is.
at
Yeah.
Ramat HaGolan, wait, put it back on.
All right. All right.
All right, if you look on the top left, Ramat HaGolan over there,
Yeah.
that's the Golan Heights. Okay, that's a
That's-
mountain.
Yeah, but we've got that
They
already.
used to actually, Assyria used to own that, and they used to
Yes.
shell from the high positions down into the Sea of Galilee and further into the Jezreel Valley.
Correct.
Yeah, so again, strategists will tell you Israel should not give back. I mean, if you ask them just on a strategic basis alone, exclude the politics. If you're playing like a game of Risk or whatever, which land would you take to actually ensure the peace? That's the land they'll tell you to take. Okay, these are people who essentially live their entire lives by military strategy, and politics aside, will just be quite honest and say, you know what, it doesn't. If you take out the politics of it, as a military person, you would not give up that land, especially to an enemy.
Okay.
Same can
then
be said about the Jordan Valley as well, can't it?
so then this is what it would look like if one state controlled the whole strip.
Right.
Now, is that a solution? Is that the one state solution we can be happy with?
No.
Why not?
For me,
I'm
it
not
is.
happy with it.
Okay. Well, let's hear why this wouldn't work.
I didn't say it wouldn't work. I said, well, it wouldn't actually work.
Okay.
Right?
Why?
Let's be honest. How would that work? How would you get rid of 8 million people to leave a land?
Okay. I tell you what. This is how I would make it work like this. I would say Palestine, however, whatever the history or whatever is, Palestine, the state of Palestine as it is on that map, is a 100% wholly secular state, let's say.
Not though.
But let's say, if I say let's say, don't say it's not, because it's
Yeah,
kind
it doesn't have no bearing on reality whatsoever. You can say,
Yeah, but
let's say
we're
it's on
talking
the
about
moon.
how it's going
Okay.
to work.
All right, let's assume it's on the moon too.
But we're talking about, Nathaniel, how it's going to work. If Palestine was a secular state,
Right.
just like say Israel could be,
Right.
then it would work, right? Because everybody there'd be no religious oppression. Everybody would be
Um,
free to practice their
I
religion.
just don't see that happening.
I understand why you don't see that happen. Okay, well let's. I don't know. You don't see that happening, but let's find out if anybody else thinks that's a good idea. Damien, do you think it's a good idea? One
To
Palestine.
me, I think that's the only solution, but it won't happen. Look, we all know it won't happen, and we all know the reasons why it won't happen. But I'll still say, to me, that is the only solution that could work. It just won't be given a chance. That's the worst part for me.
Why do you think it
the
could work?
Palestinian people need, and I don't know how this is going to happen, they need to be able to vote for people who actually want to peace and to negotiate and to settle. There's no legitimate, logical, rational reason why the Palestinian people can't integrate into the Israeli society.
I agree.
From
So
what,
would this
from
work
what
then?
I understand, they're perfectly welcome to.
Would this
They
work?
won't do it. So something's going to have to happen with them, with their mindset, and with, probably more importantly, their options on who they vote for to do their speaking for them. And they can't look around the outside because all the surrounding Arab states treat them like shit
True.
as
But
well.
don't you think it's what the Palestinians want? They voted for Hamas.
But
Hamas did not take power without actually getting elected. They did get elected.
I know that. But what were their options? What were the political ideologies of their options?
I would put to you that they don't have options because their society, they themselves, kill off anyone that has any sort of idea for peace with Israel.
Which is why I said and I also said I couldn't see how it was going to happen, but they need to be able to vote for people that do want it.
They can vote for whoever the hell they want. The problem is, will their society allow these people to come into the fore?
Yeah, and that was part of my point.
Their own making, essentially.
That was part of my point. Those options aren't going to present themselves.
Right.
That was part of my point.
Ah, okay, all right. And then I don't disagree with you.
But that needs to happen for chance to have a chance. Peace to have a chance. But how
essentially, what you're saying, for peace to have a chance, they have to change their entire worldview.
For all intents and purposes, yes.
You think it'll happen by Christmas?
I think we're going to be old and gray before we start seeing the fruits of this. You are old and gray. I'll be old and gray.
I've been saying this for as long as I can remember. The only way I can actually see it happening is for an absolutely atrocious, vicious, violent war to play out.
We have an ISIS supporter in the chat.
Well, he can come in here and tell it to our face.
His name's Crick O'Hara. No, he might be just a troll, but.
Well, let him come in here and explain himself.
He's a coward, I'm sure.
Where is this?
It's in the YouTube, on the YouTube page, on the streaming page, on Secular TV, the channel.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through.
Yeah, I just haven't paid much attention for a while, so I'm going down.
All I can say to anybody that wants to support ISIS, back your fucking mouth up and get up over there.
Absolutely. I'll even pay for your ticket.
Yeah.
One-way ticket, that is.
Or do one of those actions in a westernized country, and we all know the immediate outcome is you're going to get shot dead.
Yeah. Go for it. Mr. fucking
Yeah, but I
big
think
shot
I
hero.
would be hesitant to encourage that sort of thing because we've all seen the fact that they don't care if they're shot dead, and they actually do carry out those actions. You know,
So be it. Go,
they
but just
are
go. Don't
truly
do it in
insane.
Australia. Don't do it in Canada. Don't do it in Israel. Go do it in Syriaistan or fucking who knows what it's called now.
Yeah, I know it's not Syria anymore. There is no Syria.
There's no Syria anymore. Exactly.
I mean,
Now
the
it is.
Israeli military intelligence a couple of weeks ago came out and said we have not considered Syria a contiguous state in a very long time. There's no actual Syria left.
There's no border. Exactly.
Yeah, Assad controls what, like a fifth of the landmass now, something like that,
Exactly.
and badly
So
at that. You know.
so that um, the way the French carved up their mandate is kind of coming back to haunt them right now.
It's Iraq too. The way the British carved out of Iraq is coming back to
Yes.
haunt them.
Yes. 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 Crick, you do. I say you support ISIS. Huh? Why can't I say you support ISIS? Crick O'Hara supports ISIS. You heard it here. First. I'm sure the tweets will follow in rapid succession. But yeah, you want to come and join us, and we'll listen to your support for ISIS.
But what did
and,
he actually say in chat? I don't have access to it. So
Oh, he said.
Israel is the parasite.
Yeah, something about. Hold on, let me go find it.
That's not supporting ISIS, though. That's just being
No, well,
uneducated.
it's good
An
enough
idiot.
for me.
Which on this
There
issue,
is it.
mate?
Israel is the parasite. All right. If Israel's the
And
parasite, this man
he's
supports
using
ISIS.
using Israeli technology to make that claim. So just to let you know, yeah, he's actually using Israeli technology to make that
Yes.
claim. So
Get off the
it's
internet.
a real shame that
Get off the internet, Crick.
the
Israel
other side doesn't
invented it.
actually create anything other than death and destruction, but that's the position we find ourselves in. And if you want to change the way things are, maybe you should encourage them to change their ways first. Israel's actually going around creating stuff that people use every day to make their lives better. And I
to
don't
make
see
their
you.
bombs
I don't know
better?
what you do. Maybe you're a doctor or something. If you are, you certainly are using Israeli technology.
Even
on
an
everyday
ISIS doctor?
basis. ISIS fighters.
Not
actually have
fighter,
been-
doctor.
Yeah, but ISIS fighters have actually been treated here in Israel.
Are you kidding me? ISIS or rebels or just
ISIS and Al-Nusra and all the rest, FSA, there have been members of every group here treated in Israel. Silently, quietly, but it's absolutely true.
so
It's
don't you
All
think
the
that
Israel
more-
bashers want that suppressed because that doesn't help their argument that Israel are a bunch of assholes.
Exactly. Now, don't you think the more ISIS rebels that Israel treats, the better it is for Israel because the
Well,
more...
that's what they said that their goal is. They said that they're doing this for long-term relationships,
Right.
and that they hope that they said they will hopefully see some rewards from this sort of thing. But that's always been their policy. Israel
I've
has
got
always treated the enemy.
I got a comment that I need you to verify, Nathaniel, from Yuri. Yuri Tchaikovsky. He says that most Palestinians have their own autonomy already, like Gaza and 42% of the West Bank. Now, I know about Gaza, but 42% of the West Bank is autonomous?
Yeah, they're living under Palestinian Authority rule.
Okay, so what is this about roadblocks and roadblocks and roadblocks?
Because to get from one town to another, you tend to have to go through Israeli roadblocks. It's not within the towns themselves. It's essentially from one town to another you have to go through Israeli roadblocks.
Isn't that a hassle? How long do you have to wait?
Depends what the security situation is that day. If they had credible threats, if the guy in front of you, a couple people up, it looks like he, is up to no good. I mean, it is a whole bunch of depends.
All right. Well, let me ask you: are there two separate lines, one for Israeli cars and one for Palestinian cars, or something?
Yeah, well, Israeli cars don't take the same roads typically because they're
separate roads.
Yeah, well, because the Palestinians shoot at Israeli cars. The amount of people that have been, the amount of children, we're talking like babies, let alone like, women, etc., who have been killed from snipers in the West Bank because they were on Palestinian roads or close to them is staggering. Okay, they still do this. They'll shoot random people just driving by. They're fucking savages.
So annexation of the West Bank is not a good idea still, huh?
Well,
it's not a sustainable idea.
No, Gabriel brought up some good points about annexation, which I would have to re-examine, I suppose. I don't know. You have to make a lot of... my view is still you would have to make a lot of assumptions about what Israel can or cannot.
Can we at least agree on this?
Yeah.
Here, this graphic here.
Okay, I'll look at it. Yeah, there's no.
So there's no doubt that from 1516 to 1918, a period of 300 years, 400 years, the Ottoman Empire owned this land. The Ottoman Empire owned this land here, the entire land, and there was no state of Palestine ever.
Right.
Right. And then in 1918 comes the British, and they knock the Ottoman Empire out, and they take the territory, and they are now charged with it by the League of Nations to look after it as part of their mandate, right? And between at the point of 1948, once Britain decides that they've had enough and they're out, the state of Israel is proclaimed, and the surrounding nations all attack Israel. We all know that this much of Israel survived, that you can see that's in blue and white, from 1948. Okay, we all agree on that. That's Israel.
Right.
The Gaza is we always knew that as the Gaza Strip, but it was Egypt. And we always knew that as the West Bank, which is part of Jordan. It is always part of Jordan. When Israel took it over in '67 here, it was Jordanian.
But you should add both those pieces of land were taken illegally.
No, it wasn't illegal.
Well, no,
Why was it illegal?
Why was it illegal? Because
Palestinians keep saying that, but why is it illegal?
Okay, hold on a second. Wait, I just want to show you something. Israel actually tried to take this land in 1948 during that war, but the Jordanian army
was already there.
The Jordanian army was very well trained by the British themselves, and Israel was not able to conquer this part here.
It was already their land. Part of international law says it is illegal to annex land or take land via an act of aggression. You can do it through defending yourself.
Well, that's what they did.
Through a defensive war. No. These surrounding nations attacked Israel as an act of aggression, and they then held on to land gained. Hence, that was illegal.
Right.
Going by international law. That's why I said those two pieces of land were held by Jordan and Egypt illegally, because they were obtained through an act of aggression.
Right.
That's international law.
I totally agree with you.
Right, but I agree. But when Israel took them back, the original partition that was agreed upon by the UN was invalid. So Israel had every right to hold on to that land. The original agreement was dissolved. So essentially, what I'm saying is that the Palestinians love to say how Israel took that land illegally, but that's not actually true.
Which is exactly what I was saying.
Okay, yeah.
They actually had the land illegally. Palestinians.
Yeah. Well, they didn't actually have the land. They never had the land. That's the problem.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, they did.
And
But
Well,
yeah.
this is the UN partition plan. Okay, this is this is how it was supposed to look in 1947.
I know what it looks like by heart.
And look what it looks like now. Okay, so Israel just has more land by virtue of the fact that it was attacked by all these people, and it managed to defend a whole bunch of it. You know, and it didn't. It couldn't defend. It couldn't defend this West Bank area, and even Jerusalem was surrounded, was declared an I don't know, international city or something, and was governed by the League of Nations or United or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah, but see, and that was only a proposal. That
No, this is the United Nations Partition Plan of 1947. This is it, right here.
Yeah, but the only way borders become legal is when both parties sign and agree to them. That never happened.
Israel agreed to it.
One side did. For them to become legal, both sides need to.
Which is the other side? What are they called?
Whoever you want to call
Who was
them,
representing? You see the
is.
orange here. You see the orange here. This is the Arabs. Who is representing the Arabs? And you see how it's got a contiguous Arab state, and the Jewish state is divided like into 3 areas. Do you see how they had it?
But my point is, there's nobody from the. There was nobody on the other side, on the Arab side, who signed agreeing to these borders. Therefore, they never became legal borders.
I don't get it. I don't say what you're saying, because this was a legal border. It was the United Nations Partition Plan. It's got nothing to do with who signed what. It's the United Nations Partition Plan.
It does, because if you don't have a government accepting those borders and signing off on them,
you do. You had the you had the UK government, you had the British government signing off on those borders, and then they left.
No, you did not have the government in question that was actually given the land. Did not exist. This Palestinian government, never actually existed.
Yes, but
so who are you going to give the land to?
But does this land not look as if it's a way better deal for anything they've ever gotten in their life? And if they'd have said yes right then, it would have looked like this perhaps today.
That's not the question, though. The question is, who was it given to? Was it given to a government authority that could actually enforce those borders?
Yes. This is what was happening.
And that was my point. They're not legal borders.
I think you guys are absolutely wrong. First, we know that who was the land of Israel? Who was the territory given to on the Jewish side? Who was the Jewish state given to?
The government of Israel.
But hold on a second. You said the state hasn't been declared yet. Okay, they're just giving the...
Right, but they had a representational government that...
Well, they must have had a representational...
They did not.
The Arabs must have had a representative, the Mufti or something.
Please name me the representative who was the head of that government.
The Mufti of Jerusalem.
No, he was not. He was actually a war criminal and did not speak for the Palestinian people.
There was no Palestinian people. You see, that's the thing. The Palestinian people only arose as a sort of a nation, as it were, in 1967.
Right, I agree with you, but the point is that they gave the land. Look, the UN obviously gave the land to somebody, but the problem is that somebody doesn't seem to really exist. Who was in charge of receiving that land?
And you mentioned the Mufti of Jerusalem. Wasn't he one of the ones that was given the petition plan to agree to? He walked away with the mats and never returned.
No, he was already when the British won, he already was in flight to Syria, I believe, because of his relations with the Nazis. He was indicted by Britain as a war criminal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was the Mufti of Jerusalem who...
that was the Mufti of Jerusalem. But there was nobody else... Right, but there was nobody else to take control of that region.
Well, that sucks.
No, the United Nations gave
an agreement can't be reached.
Oh, there's a spider. I have to go kill it.
Don't kill the spider. Excuse me.
No,
Could you
I'm
set
gonna
the
kill.
spider
I'm gonna
free?
kill whatever the
Don't
fuck I
kill the
want to
spider.
kill. I
No,
hate spiders.
I hate mosquitoes more. So kill the mosquito, and spiders eat mosquitoes.
There are no
Your
mosquitoes in this
spiders,
game, my
spiders
friend.
are your friends. There
You
we
say what you want. He's a fucking spider. He's gotta die.
No, you're absolutely... Nathaniel, do you see the chat? Benny's in.
I don't get along with Benny.
You don't get along with Benny? Everybody gets along with Benny.
I don't. And I am somebody, therefore not everybody.
Okay, Benny says, is 720 good enough for me? I don't know what that means. What's 720?
I never understand what Benny is saying. I can't tell half the time if he's just screwing around or if he's just out willy-nilly trying to, like...
No, he says the Palestinians only shoot bad people.
Okay. He's trolling.
And also, Yuri says that there are no separate roads in Israel for the PA and for the
no, there are no. I've seen signs where it says, you know, you are entering a Palestinian. I have a picture of one somewhere near the Dead Sea, where essentially when you go to the Dead Sea from Jerusalem, you are driving into the territories technically, and there are places to go. You know, to the east.
720p.
I have no idea what you just said.
I was nothing. Carry
on. Anyway, I've seen signs that says security warning: you are leaving an Israeli road, and etc. You know, please be careful. Blah blah. I have pictures of one.
Okay, but there's no two sort of highway infrastructures.
No, not that I know. No.
That's kind of what I was inferring from what you said.
Last time I was in the West Bank was, well, actually I was there in September. I went to Bethlehem, but last time I really hung out.
You went to Bethlehem?
Yeah, took pictures. Well, I've been to Bethlehem many times.
I know, but isn't it? It's in the West Bank. Isn't it dangerous? Something? Isn't there genocide happening there or something?
No. No, I went to Bethlehem. I have pictures to show. It's not my first time. I've been many times.
You have friends in Bethlehem?
No, but I actually like some people in Bethlehem that I've met.
Yeah.
And all Palestinians, might I add.
Well, are they Christian Palestinians?
Some aren't. Actually, the Palestinian taxi driver I hired to take me around for most of the day, he was an older man, and he not only was fed up with the situation, but you'd be pleased to hear he was basically an atheist. And he was afraid of telling anybody else. We discussed it because we had been talking about my family, etc. But essentially, he's an atheist, and he thought that he essentially thought that the Palestinians couldn't govern themselves as long as they had religion governing them their ways. And he was an elderly gentleman, spoke English flawlessly, French as well, and Hebrew and Arabic. And we had a wonderful time discussing the politics, and I can tell you he railed more about the Palestinians than anything else.
I absolutely am not surprised. That's why I'm trying to get the true point of view from.
Yes, but he also recognized the fact that should his family or his friends ever find out that he could possibly be killed. Right?
Yes. This is true. This is why we need en masse everybody to come out. They can't kill everybody who all of a sudden comes out and says, "Actually, I'm secular."
I disagree. Have you seen the body bags? Coming out of the ISIS-held region.
I have seen it, yes, but then again, that's because there's so much weaponry in ISIS-held regions and not as much in the West Bank.
What city are you living in, my friend?
You just said you went to Bethlehem.
The PA has more weaponry than you could shake a stick at. I mean, it's not like missiles.
And they support ISIS.
It's more than enough to mass.
The PA supports ISIS.
And that's all ISIS actually uses.
Saying?
Huh?
You're saying the PA supports ISIS?
No, I didn't say that. In fact, I think they're pretty much against ISIS. No, the Hamas sort of has a dual front with ISIS. They're both fighting them kind of and supporting them kind of at the same time. It's a bizarre sort of situation from what I'm given to understand.
That's bizarre.
Well, it's understandable because the Hamas has lost favor with Iran because Hamas did not openly support the conflict, the Iranian side of the conflict in Yemen. They said basically it doesn't have anything to do with us because Hamas is a Sunni organization.
That's an old boys problem, right?
No, it's an internecine problem. It's again Shia versus Sunni. So Hamas essentially says we're friends with you, but this is a situation we essentially don't want to get involved with because this would make us choose sides. And the Iranians said, well, we've been footing your bill for quite a long time, so you're going to have to choose sides. And they said, well, we don't want to. So the Iranians 4.5 months or something. So essentially Hamas is in a kind of a cold bureaucratic war with Iran right now, and so they have. It would not surprise me if they've been looking for, new patron of sorts.
Yeah.
But
well, here's another graphic that I found.
All right.
We actually should think of wrapping the show up. We've been going almost 90 minutes.
What, are you kidding me, really? Oh,
yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say as well, let's just have a quick look at this one. In 1922, this was the mandate of Palestine. In 1922, along the Jordan River, the British drew a line down the river and prohibited any Jewish immigration across this line and made it Arab only. And anything in the orange area here was Jewish settlement permitted.
Yeah, I know the map very well.
Okay.
Yeah, more than enough.
I do have to say, apologize for Gabriel not being here this week. He was supposed to join in and participate in this one-state solution discussion. That's really why we didn't get into it right from the very beginning. As you might know or might not know, Gabriel is in the Army, in the IDF, and he was on duty, so he couldn't make it. Hopefully he can make it next week when we can continue this conversation and hopefully come to a conclusion. I have an idea that Gabriel's input will help tremendously.
Yeah, Gabriel has more specific ideas about the West Bank solution than I do. I'm kind of more pessimistic overall.
Yes, I see that. Which makes me more optimistic, and that's a pretty sad state of affairs, don't you think?
I don't know. Maybe it's the way it should be.
Maybe. Do you want to plug anything or say your goodbyes, Daniel?
No. Just I'll try to be here next week.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate you being here next week because
I didn't realize the time had gone so quickly.
Well, that's because you're playing Minecraft.
I know it is actually.
There you go.
And having a fine whiskey, might I add.
There you go. Oh, even better. Damien, you got anything to plug? You got any shows coming up?
No, nothing new on the horizon. Got some video ideas, but that's where they're at the moment.
Okay, well, Damien's in Brisbane, everybody, and it's like 8 in the morning.
Time for him to get up now. That's what it is.
Exactly.
It's now 25 past 6 in the morning.
25 past 6. From me, Sidney Winston, I'm here in Vancouver, British Columbia. This is Secular TV. Please consider becoming a patron of Secular TV. Your support helps us continue to promote content to the secular community globally, as we are on the internet. And oh! Look at that! Look what you can buy! Look at the stuff that you can buy. through our
It's one of
website.
the mini shirts.
Yeah. At the bottom of this YouTube are all the links to the website, stores, whatever. Again, thank you for watching this edition of Reason Speak.
I'll say one more thing. If you don't,
one more thing.
if you're not going to be a patron of secular TV, you're going to be a patron of the Hamas. So which would you rather be?
It's us or Hamas.
You're either with us or you're with the Hamas. There you go.
Well, there you have it. I mean, so I expect to see patrons pouring in for secular TV, of course.
Yeah.
Well, we're a little shy of 90 minutes. I'm going to end it right here. Again, thank you very much for watching. Stay secular, think secular. See you next week.